The first time I met Judith Haverly, she was standing at the edge of my driveway with her arms crossed and a laminated clipboard pressed tight to her chest like it was a badge of honor. She didn't wave or smile, just stared at my boots and then at the newly restored cedar cabin behind me. This structure violates at least 6 aesthetic provisions, she said flatly, and it's clearly not HOA approved. I blinked at her, sweat still beating down my forehead from sanding the porch railing. "Good afternoon," I said. "I don't believe we've met. I'm Miles Booker, and this is private land, not part of your HOA. Her eyes narrowed. "This is Laurel Hill Estates. All improvements must be reviewed by the Compliance Board." I shook my head. I checked the maps and deeds before buying. "This 2-acre parcel predates your subdivision by 40 years. It's exempt." She pursed her lips like she'd swallowed a bitter pill. "We'll see about that." At first, I figured she was just another overly involved neighbor with too much free time. I didn't think much of the first letter I got. Then came a second. Then 4 more. They were typed in all caps with ominous wording: unauthorized structure, violation of community guidelines, immediate compliance required. The return address said Laurel Hill Estates HOA Compliance Division, but none of it felt official. I didn't reply. I had nothing to prove. 2 weeks later, I went to visit my sister in Boise. Just 3 days. When I returned, my heart dropped into my stomach. The cabin was gone, completely flattened. Not even rubble, just disturbed soil and scattered nails. I stood there staring at it, my chest hollow, for a solid 10 minutes before I called the sheriff. The deputy on duty, a young guy named Paxton, looked baffled when I explained. "Wait, like, they demoed your house?" "Yes," I said, voice shaking. "And I think I know who did it." The next evening, I attended a community HOA meeting Judith had mentioned in one of the letters. The clubhouse was a beige, lifeless box with folding chairs and a tray of stale cookies. Judith sat at the front with 2 men flanking her, both wearing name tags that said board member. I didn't wait for introductions. I stepped right to the center and said, "You tore down my cabin." Gasps filled the room. Judith raised her eyebrows. "Sir, we removed an unapproved structure that was in clear violation." I dropped a manila folder onto the folding table with a smack. That structure was a fully permitted, surveyed, and recorded residence outside your jurisdiction. One of the men looked nervous. Judith's face didn't budge. "We gave warnings," she said. "You trespassed. You destroyed private property. And I work at the county records office. Every deed, map, and permit from the last decade, my name is on them." That got her attention. Her eyes darted to the folder, lips twitching. But she still said, "Mistakes happen. This wasn't a mistake." I shot back. This was criminal destruction. The next morning, 2 investigators showed up on my land, one from the sheriff's office and one from the DA. I gave them everything: certified permits, historical surveys, even an old plat map signed by the county assessor. You weren't bluffing. The DA's investigator, a woman named Camille, said, "Not even a little." I replied, "Turns out, Judith had claimed my land as common green space for the HOA and ordered the demolition through a contractor using a forged site map. The contractor, when confronted, admitted Judith gave him all the documents and never asked him to verify ownership. She said it was unsafe. He told us, said it had to go. He gave up every email, invoice, and the signed work order. Her name was all over it. That afternoon, I hired a lawyer named Brent Holloway Sharp, calm and methodical. He filed a civil suit within 48 hours, along with a restraining order barring the HOA from entering my land. A week later, Judith was subpoenaed. When the news broke, the community freaked. Turns out, I wasn't the only one. People came forward with stories denied garden permits, citations for mailbox colors, fines for wind chimes. Brent began forming a class action. Judith went radio silent. The board scrambled, but it wasn't over. Camille called me 3 weeks later. "We've uncovered something bigger," she said. Judith had help inside the county. A zoning compliance officer had approved the fake site map with a backdated stamp. His name was Philip Rourke. I recognized the signature immediately. He'd approved one of my past permits. Turns out, he'd been rubber stamping whatever Judith handed him for years. Kickbacks. Maybe. We didn't know yet. But what we did know was that now the DA's office had 2 targets. Rourke was arrested the next week. The charges: conspiracy, fraud, falsifying records. Judith was hit with the same, plus misappropriation of HOA funds she'd paid the contractor using the association's emergency reserve. Once that came out, the HOA's insurer went into panic mode. Their lawyer requested a meeting. Brent and I showed up with every document in a neat binder. The insurance rep tried to offer a quiet settlement. Brent laughed once, then laid out our terms: full reconstruction, double damages, board reform, and a public statement of wrongdoing. 2 days later, they signed everything. By then, the entire neighborhood had turned. A town hall was held this time in the park. No cookies, no pretenses, just residents, angry and determined. They asked questions. They demanded resignations. The board caved. Judith had already disappeared, but 3 other members stepped down. Elections were held. A new president, Danielle, took over. Her first act: hire an external auditor and begin reviewing every enforcement action from the last 5 years. Meanwhile, my cabin was being rebuilt better, sturdier. I installed motion lights, high-resolution cameras, and triple-checked every inch of boundary line. Brent's class action grew to over 60 plaintiffs. The county, facing heat over Rourke, quietly agreed to a separate settlement. They'd failed in oversight, and they knew it. Camille kept me updated. Judith's plea deal included restitution, a public apology in the local paper, and a permanent ban from holding any HOA or municipal authority position. She'd serve 18 months, the night the reconstruction finished. Danielle stopped by with a document. "We're renaming the park," she said, holding out the paper. "To mark a new beginning?" I opened it and read the new name, Booker Pines. I looked at her, stunned. "You didn't have to." "We did," she said. "You stood up when no one else did." Later that night, I opened the drawer in my desk, pulled out the original deed from 1961, and tucked the new park resolution beside it. The cabin stood tall outside my window, stronger than ever. And now it stood for something. A line in the dirt no one could bulldoze. Not again.